Good morning. Good morning. What's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday to you. It is October the 15th, 8:30 in the morning here. JTW coming at you with another Xtrades FOMO live stream. I hope everybody had an excellent weekend and their week is off to a solid start with one trading day behind us. We've got just a couple of tickers to review today. I didn't have time this weekend. I just had prior commitments, and it's going to be the same thing coming up this weekend. Didn't have time to do member selected trade plans on Sunday, so we'll just focus on the couple of trade plans we did on last Thursday's live stream, kind of put some focus on what we should be looking at for the markets in general as far as futures go. But we'll spend the majority of our time today working on new trade plans. So if you guys have joined already this morning, congrats, you're the early birds, you get the worm. So please go ahead and start dropping your ticker requests in the chats. I'll be happy to start taking those whenever you all are ready. And then we'll get to doing some trade plans for those. So with that being said, let's go talk about ES. What's up, Navy Plum? Good morning to you. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Let's see, happening now. Okay, the events started in Xtrades. Okay, everything's good to go. Sorry, I'm trying to keep track of all these things at one time, and sometimes it can be a little crazy broadcasting to multiple avenues and trying to track multiple chats all at once, but I think we do a good job of keeping up here. All right, so what are we looking at on S&P futures? Well, we were obviously pushing new all-time highs here. We're on a pretty strong trend to the upside at the moment. We've even seen a really nice bounce off that as of last Friday, which gave us a big boost, pushing through some pretty key resistance there at 58.44.50. That was a level that we've had on the charts for quite some time. I can't remember how far back those fib extensions go. When we finally got to see a test of those last week, that held up pretty well, and we've pushed higher. Now we're getting into some of the more extended fib extensions up in this range. I'd like to get into adding a new set of fib extensions. The only thing that I think we're sort of missing at this point is a really good confirmed pullback and probably another test of this trend line. If we were to kind of guesstimate, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it, and I wouldn't put as much weight or stock into these fib extensions that I'm getting ready to draw as I would my normal ones, for the reasons I just explained. I think we'd be looking at something that would bring us down possibly to here, would be my guess. Would sit probably right around there. That would give us a new set of extensions, which would add some levels over this 59.32, and I'll make these, oh gosh, some crazy color that I don't really use on the ES chart that much, like that color. Just so these stick out. I'll also make some notes for myself later to go back and review these, because again, I would expect that these may not be quite as accurate as my usual fib extension drawings, just because again, we haven't really had that true confirmed top and pullback that I would like to see to say, okay, this is what we need to project the top of the current trend from. So, this is a little bit of guesstimating, but looking at how that zero would catch that resistance on the way up that we don't have, which let me go ahead and drop that into place. It's a little bit shy of it. Catches sort of where most of these candles are rejecting or struggling to close above. So potential kind of areas of resistance that I'd be looking at overhead if we can continue to push higher and maintain this trend. I'd be looking at 59.44.50 for potential resistance. If we can break through that, well, then I'd be looking at 59.90. Generally speaking, I think, we can get through that 50% fib extension a lot of times. I feel like the move winds up being from the 38.2 up to the 61.8. From there, we clearly have a cluster. Multiple fib extension sets have all indicated that there will be some pretty key resistance around this 60.17 to 60.22 range. So I would certainly watch that as kind of our next top where we could see a significant pullback. So some levels to keep on watch overhead there. And again, the fib extensions that we just worked up, not quite ready to put those on the chart yet as far as what the price action has done. But I think it's a pretty decent guess at where we will see things start to set up. What's up, Chris? Good morning to you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. I got your voice memos this morning, and I think I responded back to you, but if I didn't, I will after this. But yeah, good morning, brother. Hope you're doing well. All right, so with that out of the way, kind of talking about the market, projecting these resistances, getting some ideas of where we should be targeting to start to put some hedges in place, start to scale out maybe some of our longer term swing contracts if they're bullish for the upside. Again, I think the really key level on the next leg up is going to be 60.22, but obviously we have some resistances in the way that could certainly reject before that. There's just a really interesting cluster across multiple sets of fib extensions where we see, again, potential resistance in that 60.17 to 60.22 range. All right, with that, let's get to our trade plan reviews and then start dropping some ticker requests, folks. We're going to have plenty of time to do trade plans this morning. We might be able to get through like 3 or 4. So go ahead and start dropping those in the chat. And we'll get to work on those as soon as we wrap up these trade plan reviews. All right, so we did JPM last Thursday. They reported earnings the following morning. So we did this trade plan. No, I'm sorry, that's Wednesday. That's Friday. Why am I missing Thursday? Oh, sorry, I went just barely too far back over there. Yeah, so here's Thursday. Again, we did this pre-market here. Gave us an attempt at a confirmed breakout to the upside. Came back tested the stop loss average down level / 200 SMA confluence right there. That's a great setup. We talk about these confluence setups a lot. We talk about the 200 333 SMA combo a lot. But here we see JPM on the 15-minute chart coming down to test that confluence with that stop loss average down level there at 211.51. The low of that candle, and it looks like the low of the day for that day was actually 211.47. So we were 4 cents off low of the day with that 211.51 level. But we did have the 200 SMA there as well. So great confluence for setup for a bounce to the upside. Then JPM reported earnings and certainly did bounce to the upside, broke over our third price target and was back testing it as support for a little while there. We pulled back a little bit further as of yesterday's trading day, back to PT2, seem to be holding that or trying to hold that as support right now and working our way back over PT3. So overall, if you were willing to ride this one out through the earnings report and you saw this 15-minute 200 SMA confluence setup, congratulations, good play there. Obviously, I'm not one to really go in heavy on options on any type of earnings play. That's just not my style. I'm a little bit lower risk and consistent return kind of guy. But if you're willing to take the shot at it, and I'm sure this was, I would have to guess, an unknown reviews request, one of our regular YouTube watchers, really likes to play around those earnings catalysts. I'm guessing this was a ticker request from them. Again, all targets played out and then some. I don't know how that worked out as far as IV crush and all that sort of stuff goes with earnings report with the JPM ER specifically. So that's, again, one of the reasons why I don't really get into trading options for earnings very often, if ever, really. Last but not least, we've got Hood, and then we need some ticker requests, folks. Chris, go ahead and drop whatever you got, buddy. I'm sure you're working on something. Another shares play. Oh, yeah. Let's go back and take a look at I'm still holding my MNMD position from when you kind of recommended it, put it on my watch list back in the, I don't know, $4 range or something like that. And I've just been selling a lot of covered call contracts against it. So yeah, that's a good one to circle back to. I'd like to kind of have a new plan for myself to look at on that one. So yeah, good suggestion. Hood, we've got going here. This one is trying to play out to the upside. Again, we did this plan last Thursday, pre-market, came up, tested the call entry, rejected that on Friday, but yesterday, excuse me, big yawn there, pardon me. A little bit of an early morning sell-off, then we climbed back above that call entry, and it seems to be trying to push higher, really struggling with that pre-market high a day, small little range right here. Also has now NTS selling pressure matching, lining up right up with that at 27, just call it 27.10 if you want to, maybe a little bit higher, 27.15. Over that, we should finish the move up to PT1, and then Robinhood could potentially move even higher. So keep an eye on Robinhood. Would also be an interesting one to look to potentially buy the dip off the stop loss average down there at 25.77 if we see a pullback to that. So some levels to keep on watch for Robinhood there. But let's take a look at MNMD. Mind Med, this is a pharma kind of play, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think ultimately what they're doing is like using psychedelic derivatives, probably I would think, psilocybin mushrooms or something like that, to work on new antidepressant, anti-anxiety type medications and stuff like that. I know they got, I think, like a novel FDA approval not too long ago. So yeah, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong about any of that, Chris. But let's take a look at Mind Medicine. Good small cap play, again, easy one to trade with shares. I'm still in around it's like 470 or something like that. But I've sold a lot of covered calls, so I don't even know what my net cost per share is at this point. I haven't really done a good job of tracking it with this particular one because it's one that I'm just kind of doing solo. But a really interesting one. Yeah, nice breakout there. Break back above this 200-333 combo on the 15-minute that it got stuck under going back to kind of late September. Yeah, so pretty strong move there. Executive social share cover tax obligations. Yeah, that's no big deal there. All right, so let's take a look at this one. I do need to kind of zoom out, get some more perspective on it. In fact, I think the levels that I drew on this one were one where I was starting to work with a friend of mine who's interested to get into stock trading. We were just kind of talking about how to spot support and resistance. So you know what? On this one, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's start from scratch and build up our levels from here. Yeah, there's definitely a key level on the weekly chart here. Whoops. Sitting right around 505, Chris. So yeah, I agree. It's been holding that $5 psychological level, or really not psychological, it's confirmed weekly level. There at 505 pretty well. So yeah, double top rejection there, came up, struggled with it a little bit on this move up, broke above, back tested and found support there. So where there was strong resistance, we now have a strong floor. That's what we like to see. It's a pretty bullish look, and we certainly could see Mind Medicine continue to push off of that base. We do have another level here at 668 that we'll want to keep on watch for sure. And another one here at 788. Interesting double bottom back here, but it's not really resulted in much else since, well, there are some pretty minor, but there are some resistance tests hidden in there. So I think there is a level on the weekly around that 1064 spot. Yeah, I think we got one there at 901. And I think the last level we'll need, as far as these upside levels go, we probably would, I would think with that big rejection there, we would have something at or near this level. Maybe isn't a weekly level though. Yeah, that's a little too high. A really interesting multi-bottom right around this 1192, but it's not a weekly level. So I'm going to hold off on that for now. Let's see what our potential downside levels are though if we break below 505. Just going to hide my indicators for a second so they don't get in the way of me reading the price action. That's always first on my to-do list, and then we layer the indicators on top for agreement and confluence and, kind of real-time visualization of buying and selling pressure that we just can't see with the naked eye. Definitely a level there. Is this all-time low? If it is, we'll probably want to mark it. No. It's quite a bit lower. I'll be surprised if it drops any lower than 291. There is a base down here, though. can mark this level. Again, it's not a weekly level, so we'll just kind of keep it on watch. There might be one more level right here too. Yeah, I think there is. All right. Get over to the daily chart. Let's see what this starts to look like. See if we can't make heads or tails of this 1192 level. Is it a daily level? I think. Yeah, it probably is. It does look pretty good. Might look even better on the 24-hour chart. Not a huge difference actually. This isn't a big volume extended hours trader though, or doesn't trade a lot of volume on extended hours. So generally speaking, I'd gravitate toward the daily chart, which does not account for extended hours, versus the custom time frame I have set up here in TradingView, the 24-hour that is a custom time frame and will include your pre-market or extended hours trading sessions. So both pre-market and after hours will be included in your daily candlesticks if you set up a 24-hour time frame on TradingView. So quick FYI TradingView tip there. All right, so where are these next daily levels at? Chris, you're gonna get to do all the ticker requests today, buddy, and I'm okay with it because you generally have some very good you got some good picks. You set them up, I knock them down. That tends to have worked well for us in the past. But yeah, please, folks, get into the conversation. I see lots of people watching, nobody talking, which is okay. You don't have to talk. Lurkers are welcome. But if you have a question, want to engage in the conversation, want me to take a look at a ticker, maybe you have a existing position on, or maybe you're interested in taking a position on and you're not just sure, you're just not sure. That's probably the way to say that. Exactly how you want to approach it, let me take a look at it for you. I'll help you out. All right, so interesting gap here. Yeah, I think there is something sitting right around there. Rivian? Okay, we can take a look at that new trader. Yeah, dude, hog all of them, Chris. Get after it, bud. Pitter patter. You know what? I feel like I'm getting myself into the weeds a little bit. Looking at sort of all of these possible levels, I probably need to start honing my focus because I do want to try to get through, like I said, probably at least 3, if not 4. Trade plans here. This is a pretty interesting 4-hour level here. And get some confirmation here is the question on this level. Yeah, it really doesn't get interesting until it's over 832. Siri, okay, yeah. All right, let's take a look. There we go. What's up, Drew? What's up, Jay? Good morning. Good morning. Let's take a look. All right, so what are we looking at, or what are we looking for here on MindMed as my big head scratcher at the moment? I don't want us to get in too early, but at the same time, I don't want to miss the boat, right? That's always the delicate balance of trade entries. Yeah, I think we're looking for a break over this 609 level. Puts us right about here. I've been eyeballing this spot for a little bit. I think that let's take another look at this move back here. I might have this weekly level a little bit high, but I believe it should give us a shot at 665, which sounds like peanuts, but it's a 10% move. Could be even slightly lower. Yeah, that looks pretty solid. Again, when we're zoomed out on those weekly charts, it's the drop in the levels down is always going to be a little less accurate, so I do like to hone those in as we get into some smaller time frames. Interesting flip of support to resistance right around here at 703. I think that that's a sensible PT2. Next target. I think it's got a little bit more room, and I think that there's a 4-hour level sitting right here that we haven't mapped out yet. So it could be a bigger move over 703, which is probably also a pretty good psychological level up to 775. Stop loss average down on this upside trade plan, especially if you're going to trade it with shares. I'd give it room down to this 565 level. Below that, we go to test 505 again and potentially break that key support and continue down lower. So speaking of that key support, I think that's pretty clearly where we want to have our entry, because the downside doesn't really open up until we get below 505 from what I've seen so far. I think that gives us a pretty straight shot down to 446. Stop loss average down for the downside is, let's take a look at that though. I don't think it's 565. That's an interesting little catch of support right there at 546. Let's take a look at this through the more recent price action. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, probably right about 543, I think, is where continuation to the downside or recovery on a downside position starts to become iffy at best. All right, so below 446, I think there's a pretty good case. Again, this weekly level may need a tiny adjustment to right there. 388. I like that as a second price target. Third price target. Yeah, that is a pretty key level. It's a small move between, or it seems like it's a small move between PTs 2 and 3, but again, if we're moving to the downside, we're at 388, moving down to 351. That's almost another 10% downside. So again, seems small on the chart, but I think it is appropriate for those to start to shrink as you get down to some of those lower price levels. All right, so we're ready to go. Oh, gosh, before I go too far. Well, that just gives us agreement, right? We're flipping this 4-hour flag to the bullish side over 611, which I like. Let's take a look at this on the hourly. Oh yeah, we are right there trying to make a big push here. So here's another idea I'll throw out on this MindMed trade plan. If we're holding 565, I kind of like this as like, go ahead and buy the dip. And if you did that, a couple of things that I would say. I wouldn't necessarily go after that entry with options. That would be more of a share by the dip in my opinion. So I'm going to throw that out there, assuming that you stick to my idea of using the shares for that. versus options, I'd set my stop loss at 505 and my first target up there at 662 if you decide to take the approach of going with shares. So that's kind of my take on a potential kind of alternative way to approach what we're seeing here on Mind Medicine. So here is the chart. Let's drop this in the chats. MNMD live. Whoa. Okay, live streaming plans. There's that. That. And let's go to the. I'm gonna start putting these in the elite options chat. Starting to. I'm not gonna lie. I'm getting a little bit confused about where the best place is to post things sometimes with how we're kind of rearranging some of these channels. So if you guys have a preference on watch lists or elite options chat or whatever the case might be, let me know. What's up, Unknown Reviews? Good morning. Good to see you here, brother. We just did Mind Medicine, so let's talk through this real quick. Looking for a break over 611. That should give us targets at 662, 703, and 775 with a stop loss average down at 565. To the downside, we're looking for a break below 505. That should give us targets at 446, 388, and 351 with a stop loss average down at 543. Again, remember, we also have kind of an alternative way of approaching this trade, which is as long as we're holding 565 going into the open, or especially on another test of 565 would even be more ideal. Buy the dip and then look for, with shares, look for 662 as a first price target, 505 is your stop loss if you go with that buy the dip idea. The other thing that I would say is if you get up to 662, another idea versus just taking profit on your shares, sell some covered calls against your share position. Sell some $7 call contracts. We've got another resistance up there at 703. Your premium collection is going to be more than 3 cents, which means you can still come out ahead even if it does wind up in the money or hitting around 703 and stalling out there. So anyway, that is your Mind Med trade plans. Good request there, Chris. I appreciate it. That's one that I needed to personally take a look at. So let's get to Rivian. This one was requested by New Trader. We'll take a look at that. Do a lot of wheel CC trades. Bought SOXL, sold cover calls when I was holding my position overnight, wondering how this might look for a longer term play. Okay, yep. Thanks for the request. And if I don't get to it, New Trader, because I know you and I stay in touch pretty regularly, go ahead and shoot me a DM. I'll give you my input on SOXL. That's one I used to wheel quite a bit back in the day, and I eventually had the shares called away, and I just moved on to other tickers. I don't really know. I don't have a good reason as to why I moved off of it, to tell you the truth. It was a really nice premium generator, and with the semiconductor sector moving the way that it is with NVIDIA, it's definitely one to take advantage of, I guess is probably what I'm trying to say. All right, so let's clean up this chart on Rivian real quick. All right. Obviously, we are down in a range where I have not done a lot of charting. Man, look at that picture perfect head and shoulders on the weekly right there. All right, so what are we looking at here on Rivian? This is definitely an interesting level. It's not a confirmed weekly level. This one we'll keep on watch, though. Sure what that 1168 level's meant to indicate. Doesn't look like it's doing all that much either, though, so I'm going to take that off. Just had it as a weird color as far as how I color code my levels based on time frames. This is another interesting level, but not confirmed or useful on the weekly yet. Yeah, that's so this is our all-time low on Rivian. is an interesting little flip of support to resistance. There's not a ton of tests on it. You know, the other thing we're probably going to need to do is do some fib extensions. Got downgraded by, yeah, and I think I read something recently where Rivian's really kind of struggling business wise. And I was watching a really interesting interview recently with a couple of YouTube politicians, but they got into a conversation around EVs. And one of the interesting things that they discussed is that the percentage of EV sales is moving, accelerating pretty high. I think the percentage of new vehicle sales that are EVs is something like 50% now. The interesting part about that, and this is slightly related but also slightly unrelated, is that Tesla used to have about an 80% share of those new EV sales, and I think it's like down to like 40% now. And the other interesting thing they got into was sorry, I'm kind of trying to think and talk at the same time. Oops, no, that's going to be our price target. The other interesting thing about it was, you know, one of the guys on the other side who was, you know, kind of very much a pro Tesla guy, was saying, well, he's like, but I see Teslas everywhere. And he's, you know, the counterpoint to that as well. A lot of these EVs that are coming out from some of these more established car manufacturers don't look like EVs. So you don't even recognize that there's an EV driving right beside you. Even though that BMW or that Mercedes or that Lexus, they're coming out with some really strong offerings in that arena, in that space. And Rivian was one of the ones that got mentioned as well, but they seem to be struggling. And I kind of think, you know, you kind of wonder if they're in sort of the same boat as Tesla's, where I'm ultimately going with this, where, you know, some of these more established manufacturers are coming out with their own EV offerings, and people are now gravitating toward those. And a lot of what I hear, the reason for that is just build quality. So anyway, put that in the for what it's worth category as I kind of work on this EV trade plan here for Rivian. All right, let's figure out though, we're going to need some downside fib extensions. Real quick, I just want to see price action for a minute here. There is an interesting hourly level right about here that I think is also going to be where we're going to start our trend-based fib extension, because I believe we have a pretty decent trend pushing it down. That's a little steeper than that, actually. Maybe it doesn't start off that level the way I thought it did. There is another potential base, upside base right there. Whoops. Let's move that one more candle over. This to there. Yeah, I think that actually looks a little bit better. So that would give us then trend-based fib extensions down to here. And yeah, probably going to bring us back up. Yeah, right about there. So pretty tight potential PT1 and 2 there. Again, we talked about this a moment ago. I would actually be looking for below 38.2. I tested the 61.8. When do you feel like fibs? Is it more like when a stock has recent lows or highs? That's a good question. Well, generally speaking, right? And this is again very generally speaking. Sorry, I just want to get my bearings on this again. Feel like I've gotten off track a little bit. Yeah, we've got a different trade plan set up here for the downside. And also, we're probably going to make some adjustments to some of these upside targets as well. Looking at it on very high time frames, I saw some potential there, but we're going to make some adjustments. So generally speaking, when it comes to fibs, I don't get too heavy into the Fibonacci stuff unless I need to project levels for either above new all-time highs or below or above all-time highs or below all-time lows. That's what I'm trying to say. And the reason for that is because if I have price action and data available, that's what I really want to gravitate toward and essentially use support and resistance versus using something like a fib retracement where, we're using that to try to find those support and resistance levels using sort of a calculus versus analysis. That being said, the other thing I will say about fibs is after you've done your support and resistance levels, if you have sort of an area where the price tends to make kind of similar moves within a certain range. So in other words, like if you had a big range, even though, you might have different price targets or whatever in that range, like let's say you had a range between 12.43 and 9.90, and a lot of times, let's just use Rivian for an example, you're kind of running that whole space, not directly, but that's where the big bounces and rejections are. I'm not against using something like fib retracements in those types of circumstances to layer on top of the support and resistance levels as a means for finding additional confluences. So that's kind of when I get interested and start to use fib levels. So I hope that answers your question, Chris. But for the most part, the majority of the time for me, it's going to be a trend-based fib extension, and that's when I'm trying to find stuff like new all-time highs or all-time lows. Like that's how we do wrong layout. Come on, Trading View. OBDC. Oh, sorry, that was this blue owl thing that I was looking at on the wrong layout though, apparently. So that's how we find stuff like this, right? Where, these levels that we hit yesterday on SPY and levels that we hit, I would say, fairly accurately. I mean, both resistance and support on this level. SPY had never seen 583.95 prior to yesterday, right? But we've had that level, or I've had that level on my chart for probably weeks now, and we've never seen that price level before, right? Same thing with 585.10 up here. Both of those wound up being pretty solid. I would say the 583.95 was a little bit more solid than this 585.10, and I think that this is a further out from an older set of fib extensions. So this is probably like the 3.36 or something like that fib extension. But anyway, the point being, when you're looking at new all-time highs or potential new all-time lows, you don't have any way to kind of put together a real plan with any sort of an educated guess without those trend-based fib extensions. So, but it's important to use them when it's appropriate, and it's also important, and I had this kind of quick conversation about it. It wasn't really a conversation, just more of a quick Q&A, I should say, about it yesterday in the chat, where somebody was asking, hey, or I think it was Strife actually was asking, I noticed that you got like pretty wide moves to the upside over 582.21, but pretty kind of tighter moves to the downside. Well, we had established support and resistance levels to watch and clear areas where we would find support that were pretty tight together, right? That's just how the price action, what the price action was showing. If you look at the chart with a, you know, non-bias, let the chart tell me what's up perspective. And then overhead, you know, we have these bigger moves because, you know, there's fib extensions, and really we I could have found some tighter fib extensions and tighter targets, but we hadn't confirmed like that next top, right? So the last really confirmed top that we had, where we had a pullback and retested the trend line, you know, was a little while ago. As far as the last all-time high that we printed, that's when I drew this set of fib extensions, these pink levels that are still in place to this day. So anyway, I hope I didn't get too far down a rabbit hole or digress too much there for you guys, but yeah, that was a great question. So I felt like it was worth taking a little extra time to answer that. So that now my last thing I'm trying to figure out here on Rivian, I've made the upside plan adjustments based on smaller time frames, and I think we do have another potential resistance rejection spot right here at 1213. It was a quick support flip to resistance test, but I think we'd be playing with fire if we shoot for anything above that. So those are your upside targets. Stop loss there. Downside. I think we do this. Shoot for a move below 990. I think that does give us a realistic shot at, what am I doing? There we go. 927. Sets our stop loss right about here, right where we're kind of at pre-market. Man, sorry, I let myself get into a big rabbit hole. I did not realize how quickly time was passing by. I was really expecting to get to some more trade plans this morning. I will take a quick look. I saw multiple people ask for DJT. That's been on a hot streak at the moment for sure. So we'll take a quick look at that. I don't know if I'll have time to do like a fully, you know, thought out trade plan for it, but we'll take a quick look at it. All right, so yeah, I think that looks a little bit more reasonable. Let's take a look at this recent price action. So we didn't wind up needing those downside fib extensions after all, but yeah, that looks good. All right, so, and whoops, oh, that's wrong thing. All right, and last but not least, let's check our indicators. Confirmation, confluence up there at PT1. I like that. Confirmation that we clear out a lot of the issues in the way over 1092, so that looks good there. Nothing standing in the way below 990. I'm sure that will hold true here on the 15-minute. Let's take a quick look at the 4-hour. Yeah, everything. Don't see anything indicator-wise saying that anything is going to be in the way of what we've figured out from a price action standpoint. So this is what we're looking for on Rivian. Rivian live stream plans. We'll talk through this real quick and then we'll get to DJT. Whoops. And last but not least, what am I doing? Elite options chat. All right, so what are we looking for here on Rivian? We're looking for a break over 1092. That should give us a first target at 1129. I think that this puts us right at, very close, but right close enough to be in a 1-to-1 risk reward ratio. So definitely one where I would say start small, scale in. Over 1092, we're looking for targets at 1129. Then we get a bigger move up to 1184, and then ultimately a move up to 1213. Third price target to the upside with a stop loss average down at 1054. To the downside, we're looking for a break below 990. That should give us targets at 927, 881, and 830 with a stop loss average down at 1034. Those are your Rivian live stream plans. Okay, let's take a quick look at DJT. Not one I have charted or spent much time watching. My big concern with it has been and continues to be it's a social media company with kind of a very, very, very small and narrow user base as far as who will be actively engaging on the platform. Clearly, though, May of last year started to develop a pretty strong base down here where it bounced off of, so no surprises there on this bounce. Just a nice technical bounce. It is pushing over that there on the weekly. Struggling rejecting this 200 SMA a little bit. But on the 24-hour, it's trying to get a pretty good breakout. So where would, I think the question was kind of where would be the quote-unquote short squeeze level, or where do we possibly trigger the next leg up on DJT, I think is what the ultimate question was. I mean, it's a little bit higher, actually. Yeah, I think it is a little bit higher. Sorry, I was thinking it was almost there, but I think it does need a little bit more before that upside really opens up. Potentially gives us a shot up to 43. If it can break over 38.66, then I think you do get a bigger move up, and that's probably where a potential short squeeze comes into play. I think your bigger move is over 43.64, but there is a decent little chunk of ground that can be made up over 38.66 back up to 43.64. 38.66 also looks like a very good level to short at, so I'll throw that out there. Let's see. Yeah, it looks good on the 4-hour. Like I said, 24-hour, that 200 SMA rejection, but SMAs are still bullish overall. Is it just not? Yeah, hasn't traded long enough to have those longer term moving averages. Essentially, there's not enough weeks to start calculating the 200 or the 333 SMA on the weekly. But there is turbulence right overhead, kind of in that range too, that we talked about. So yeah, I would say until it breaks over 33.12, I'd be very careful about jumping in now, just because there's been a massive move off of 1294 up to the current level it's at over just a few weeks. So this one, I would imagine, yeah, on the daily is pretty overheated from an RSI standpoint. RSI is not the greatest indicator in the world, but I think getting in now and not waiting for a little bit more room and confirmation that more upside is going to open up, my concern would be that you're buying the top. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. Take that for what it is. We've got 10 minutes left before market open. I do need to go get the SPY plan put together. I'm sorry we didn't get through more trade plans, but we had some great questions and a good conversation. So hopefully that's all helpful to you guys and gals. I hope that you'll come back on Thursday for another FOMO live stream Thursday morning at 8:30 a.m., both in the Xtrades Discord and here on YouTube. I will not have a chance to do member selected tickers again this weekend. I'm actually going to be out of town at the Browns Bengals game up in Cleveland. We've got a suite for that, so that should be a good time. I'll make sure to share some pics with you guys in the Discord from that, but I'll be out of pocket until after Monday. So with that being said, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week. I hope you'll come back Thursday morning. Thank you so much for giving me some of your time this morning. I hope you take away something from this, whether it was some education, you learned something new, or some solid trade plans that will definitely make some money from. So with that, as we always say here on the FOMO live streams, plan your trades, trade your plans, keep your wins big, keep your losses small, go out there, get some green. I will see you guys in the chats. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.